Guys and gals, boys and girls, it's time to talk about cascading style sheets, or what are commonly called CSS. Cascading style sheets is kind of where we've been heading, and everything that we have done in the previous chapters are leading us toward this point in design. It is where, as web designers, we are, and I want you to pay a lot of attention to what's going on. Let me ask you three simple questions. Simple they are. Number one, would you like a website that looks inviting? Do you want it to be colorful? All right. And number three, how about well organized? Now, these are rhetorical questions. You've ever heard that term? You don't have to answer them. They're already answered. Of course, we want sites that are inviting and colorful. Otherwise, why would people come? And organization's not a bad thing, too. Let's look at CSS versus tags. In CSS, it's easier to maintain and update your site because CSS is controlling everything that's going on. Really, it's a breeze. You're going to love it if you've not used them before. They use less bandwidth, which means what? Well, it translates into pages that load faster. And the good news is CSS is now accessible by almost every browser that you're going to find out there, so you will be using it opposed to just about any other way to organize a site. Now, to me, CSS does something. It separates the content from the presentation. Now, what is content? Well, content is basically what the user wants. It's the words, it's the photographs, it's the physical information. It should be, and better be, useful and informative, or I won't come back. Now, the presentation part, basically that's the things like the color schemes. Should I use red, brown, blue? Which color should I use? Font choices. How about Verdana or maybe Times New Roman? And things like backgrounds and a host of all kinds of other things that we use to work on our presentation part with the content. Now, if we were very logical beings, we wouldn't need presentation. We'd read it because it was logical that we read it. And content to me without presentation is kind of like a boring outline that you might see at university that you're giving to your professor. Content brings life. Let's go back to HTML tags. HTML tags basically control web content. Tags are specific code within brackets, and that's called a container. And here's an easy one, like a P tag. P tag is for paragraph text. So this is paragraph text, is the text between the two tags. That's called a container. A heading would look, about the same, except you're using a different code, H1. We have H1 through H6. The way the paragraph text would stylize would be something like this, and the heading would be something like this. I didn't do that. HTML did it. It has a definition for what the text looks like, its color, its justification, all those things. But in CSS, tags still control content. So you're going, well, okay, so big deal. What's the difference? Well, here's the difference. You control the tags. Now let's go back to that paragraph tag. There it is, P, the quick brown fox. Now we're in HTML. Think about it that way. This is the way it would look like. Okay, what if you want it to look like that? Well, in HTML, you'd have to do something like that. You've got a P, a B, and an I, closing tags on the other side of the container. You could make this a little bit more simpler in your closes. We won't worry about that. I'm overemphasizing it, but that's a lot of work. It's complex. It takes a lot of time. It slows your page load down. There's a lot of things going on. In CSS, if you want something like this to happen, you make what is called a CSS rule. And that rule can control the tag. That's where the power is. We control the tags. For example, if I want my text to look like we see it at the bottom, which is blue, it's Verdana, 12-point italic. I would do that, and I'll show you how to do that in a second in Dreamweaver, and it would create the code that you see right here. Style type, text, CSS, and then the P indicates we're about to modify the paragraph tag. We're giving it a font family, a font size, a style, and even a color, and then we close the tag off. This information can either be embedded within the HTML document that you're working on, or it can be what I love to do, separate style sheets. So the text P, the quick brown fox, would then look like what you see down here because we stylized and we changed the paragraph tag. Now here's the cool thing about this. If we decide we don't like that, we don't have to go back to the P tag. All we have to do is change the rule, and we do it with these two areas in Dreamweaver. You have a CSS styles panel, and you have a CSS rule dialog box. Now, it was set up over here with a font family, a font size, a font style, and a color. I didn't change anything else. But if you look at my categories, I've got types, backgrounds, blocks, box borders, list, positioning, and extensions. Once I save it by clicking OK, it appears over here in CSS styles. And I can select them. You can see the rules. We just have this one called paragraph P. Properties for P are underneath. We've got the Verdana and the 12 point, the italic and the color, all these kind of things. I can change these things right here. And if I change them in the rule, everywhere they're used, it will change automatically. CSS, smaller, tighter, better, more efficient, is the way to go when you're designing web pages. It is actually, in my opinion, the only way to go when you're designing web pages.